I remember in my youth going to PE in the middle of a class schedule, a red rubber ball about the size of this basketball out on the gym court. I remember throwing it at kids across the halfway court line and learning what triumph felt like. And I also remember getting hit and turned and learning the lesson of defeat. I couldn't believe one day when my son came home and told me, "Dad, we don't have PE." I was outraged to think that something that I remember as being such a fun time in my youth was not being given to my child. It was important to me because of my son's health, the future cost of his health care, and his ability to make America function. The impact of no physical education, no physical activity for your child hits home the hardest when you consider that child's health care. Your child's health is very important. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, obesity at the age of 6 to 19 has increased by 12.75% over 32 years. Obesity is linked to diabetes, increased risk for coronary artery disease, increased risk for stroke, and also inclusive to certain kinds of cancer that can affect your child. Physical activity is also linked to stress, brain function, and confidence. When you limit their physical activity, how can they expect to function at school? In the middle of the day, you get that nice boost after you've had activity, and you bring it back into the classroom. And ultimately, children with disease become adults with more complicated diseases. So if exercise is linked to obesity, and obesity is linked to different diseases, it even leads further down into a greater problem that we're facing in the United States. The decreased funding in physical education is leading to a $2.9 trillion national health care debt in the United States. According to an article, Rising Healthcare Costs, also published by the CDC in 2000 to 2007, the healthcare cost has increased by 14%. The National Center for Education and Statistics states that from elementary school to secondary school, the government spends $591 billion just to support your child's education each year. And it seems to me that it's cheaper to educate and pay for that education and pay for the physical activity to increase that education than it is to pay for that extra healthcare cost on the back end. And if decreased physical activity leads to disease, and disease leads to higher healthcare costs, how does that affect our country overall? Why is it such a big deal? Ultimately, it is crippling the United States. An obese 19-year-old with diabetes cannot join and serve in the military. Physical activity leads to brain function, then how can you expect the future generations to invent consumption-free ways to produce energy? The United States is $17.9 trillion in debt and can't afford to decrease that debt by decreasing the debt in schools. All it accomplishes in the end is increased healthcare costs. Physical education and increased health lead to a happier life and ultimately a better citizen for our future country. Make physical activity a priority for your children, for the health of our youth, for the cost of freedom and happiness, and the overall function of the United States. You would say it's a no-brainer. Of course, let's increase physical activity. Of course, let's make sure physical PE is included in a child's curriculum. Then why has obesity increased over the years? Why has healthcare costs continue to rise? Why are we continually almost in a depression and the unemployment is through the roof? We have failed our children. We have failed by not making this a priority for our future. The 31st President, Herbert Hoover, once said, "Children are our most valuable resource." Don't sacrifice the needs of our children today for the hopes of a better tomorrow. I promise you, if you have that mindset, you'll be disappointed to see our future. It's going to look like an episode of Wall-E.